It's my feel-good breakfast show.
I never think I'm going to start like this, but I have to. Just give us a hair toss, please.
Oh, I haven't tied my hair up.
Your wife's going to have something to say about it. Yes, it is that time. 4 joins us for another edition of So Now What? So South Africa is obviously celebrating Father's Day. If you haven't picked it up yet on the show, then I don't know where you've been, but it's this coming Sunday, and we've been spending some time examining the role and the importance of dads in the family structure. And what we know that is, I think, an unfortunate reality. Not every child is lucky enough to be cared for in a loving, I suppose, complete family context. And the law has made provisions to help in those situations, thankfully.
And of course, we are calling once again upon the legal guidance of our friend and expert in law, the man with the best hair ever, Director at Legalese.co.za, Eitan Stern, to answer the question. I want to make sure I'm raising my child well in the eyes of the law. So now what?
So I just want to say I know nothing about raising a child. I'm not a father just yet. I have a great father, but so I'll keep it to the legal side of things, not any kind of parenting advice.
Parenting advice. No, we'll draw that distinction right now because we do need to focus on the law. And in this country, we've heard all sorts of negative statistics, but I just suddenly became terrified, thinking, like, am I doing anything that's not adhering, to the eyes of the law in terms of raising my child? But maybe a good place to start would be with family law. Is family law skewed in any particular direction? I suppose as a parent, I'd be thinking, hopefully the child it's all about the child. But what is...
Yeah, so family law is a fascinating, quite a broad topic, right? So, and we find it really even entrenched in our constitution, and then we've got different legislation around it. And family law is there not just to regulate children, but to regulate all different relationships. That's between parents, that's a single parent household, that's different constructions of a family, and that's obviously the rights of children as well. So any kind of family matters related to marriage, divorce, anything around family is regulated in the law. But of course, the law does give specific focus to children, and a lot of our family law is always going to put children in the front and center.
Great.
And everything's kind of built up around that. So the rights and the safety of children are always kind of front of mind.
Am I allowed to tell my child that they're breaking the law if they're not really breaking the law?
That is parenting tips.
Am I breaking the law if I do that?
No, it is a great parenting tip. So that you might regret it in a couple of years' time when the psychology bills start.
Yeah, when they come back to me and say, Dad, listen.
I almost feel like it's too late for me to ask this, for us to ask this, because we're already parents. But when a person does have a child in South Africa, what is legally required from them to take care of the child, to make sure that they are safe and are taken care of?
Cool. So, I mean, it's a fascinating thing, and for the most part, like there's a balance where the law gets involved when it's up to parents just to manage their own households, and you're always going to find that sort of balance. The rights of children are enshrined in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. So children have the right to shelter and basic nutrition and health. And then we've got what the Children's Act. And what the Children's Act actually does is it imposes an obligation on parents or guardians or grandparents or whoever's looking after children in order to bring those rights to life. So, so it's very important, I'm sure most people do understand, that if you have children, you have a legal obligation to kind of provide for that child.
And then on the other hand, again, what happens if you're not taking care of the child that you legally, binded to? How can you then intervene if someone is not taking care of a child?
Sure. And what do you do?
Yeah, look, it's complex, and you'll probably find many instances in this country where this does happen and people don't know what to do. So, I mean, if you do see child abuse of any sort, you can report it to the police. There's also the Department of Social Development, and there's certain organizations such as Childline for it to be reported to. And that goes the same for children. If children don't feel like they're being treated well, we're not talking about kind of spoiled children who feel like they should get
being punished
a little bit more or get grounded. But if there's real child abuse out there, it's very important for kids or people that see it to report it to the police, Department of Social Development, or Childline, or any other organization.
All right, all of this is great. Let's get to the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Let's talk about maintenance. The M word, dun, dun, dun. I mean, I can joke about it, but it ain't no joke. Certainly not in South Africa. Yeah. And unfortunately, it seems from my experience that the onus is then on the mother's shoulders, the responsibility to go after that maintenance. How does family law kind of wrap itself around that?
Sure. So maintenance is going to be there for parents to financially support the child. And if a family is broken up and either the mother or the father is looking after the child, it's not necessarily the dads that are the ones failing on maintenance.
Yeah,
you know,
for
but
sure.
so it can be whoever's not giving the primary care to the child has a financial responsibility, and that money is there to be used for the child's education, for healthcare, for its well-being, etc. Once a maintenance order has been made, that can be made in order of court, and therefore not fulfilling your maintenance is actually an offence, and you can be liable for a charge, like jail time or a fine.
Really?
So it is a legal obligation. If you do have a maintenance order, it's a legal obligation to keep to that maintenance order. Of course, it's also a legal obligation to make sure for the parent that is housing the child to make sure that maintenance is being used correctly.
Is utilised
You're always
properly,
going to find, like everything, there's this balance. But they put the child's right in the centre, and then everyone else's rights around it get kind of balanced to make sure that the child is looked after.
Yeah, we hope it never gets to that point, but that is the reality in which we live. Thank you so much. Great. I've picked up a lot already. Still haven't answered my question about the whole telling my child that he's doing something illegal and the police are coming if you don't stop doing that right now, if you don't eat your food. But we are having quite a serious discussion about family law and law as it pertains to dads at the moment, and what our responsibilities in the eyes of the law are when it comes to looking after our families.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back, everybody. Take a deep breath
I feel
in.
like with that intro music, he needs to be on a horse, on a hill.
I'm
Hey?
actually learning how to ride a horse now.
Are you?
Yeah.
Well, next week when you
Next
come
week
in,
I'll
just
come in on a horse.
Oh, and your hair will be
I
flowing.
signed up for a 7-day horse ride, and I don't
go.
even know how to ride one yet. I'm learning.
Will by the end of
You will
it.
by the end of
Yeah,
it,
that's beautiful, man.
But listen, it's time for some serious talk
Lest
right
we
now,
forget.
okay? We are continuing our discussion with lawyer and, of course, director at legalese.co.za, Eitan Stern, as he breaks down the legal ins and outs of how family law operates in the South African context. I mean, we had this conversation just earlier on. We are continuing this. But what?
This is an interesting one. I don't know if this is a construct of Hollywood or
Sure.
something that actually exists here within South
hear it,
African
yeah.
law. Emancipation.
Sure.
We've heard many stories and seen it kind of produced in television and film. A child getting to an age and deciding that they want to be emancipated from their parents' care. Is this something that you can do in South Africa?
So yes and no. So yes, it does exist in South African law, emancipation, but it's not so children. It's not like Home Alone, so children can go and live
their best life, yeah.
take care of themselves. It's if children need to enter the economy and need to work, so they can emancipate themselves, so they can start to work and earn in one way or another. But it's not just if a child is like unhappy at home.
Displeased with my parenting, yeah.
And even when a child is emancipated, there still needs to be some aspect of parental care and guardianship. So obviously children run households in this country is a very serious issue and do
Yeah.
exist. And even when they do
prevalent,
exist and the head of the household as a child needs to be working, the court still needs to designate a guardian or a parent or something in order to manage that household. So
Is there an age limit?
there are certain. It's a more complex question. There are certain age limits for different things. So a child can work at the age of 15. So can enter into an employment contract with the age of 15, but there's only certain work that child can do.
Okay.
So yeah, emancipation does exist, but it's so if a child needs to work and enter into contracts.
It's not because they want to go vegan and their parents aren't vegan. And
No, definitely not that. Let's talk about the disadvantages, maybe the pros and cons of this law that has been put into place.
Of which the emancipation?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, so the pros is obviously that a child, if a child does need to, there's something which a child wants to do that a parent isn't allowing them to do or can't do, or they don't have a parent to consent to it, then they can emancipate themselves and and it's done through a court order. A court looks at the situation, looks at the parenting, looks at the context, and it's quite a serious thing, so a court needs to award it. The advantage is that the child can do something which they wouldn't be allowed to do otherwise. The disadvantage is, well, children are supposed to be cared cared for and
Oh, yeah.
supposed to be taken care of. So, you know, it's not an ideal thing if a child needs to suddenly find themselves in an age-inappropriate situation of needing to work. Yeah.
Well, I was going to add to that, in the case of child-run households, which is a very much a prevalent situation here in South Africa, how does that normally happen? Would a social worker help guide that child through that process? Can a child just phone a lawyer? How does that work?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, you know, so I mean, I'd say, you know, in any situation where there's a child out there or someone that knows a child that's struggling in a home situation, your first port of call will always be some sort of child services, to put yourself into a context of people that actually know what they're dealing with.
Structures,
These problems are complex, and there are people out there that have experience in this. So, you know, the Department of Social Development or some sort of an organization that deals with the rights of children. So that's going to be first port of call, and then they'll hopefully be able to put together a plan to care for the child. There would be other circumstances like where a child might need to be emancipated. Maybe that child is an actor or has a career as a young person. And in those sorts of circumstances, the child could enter into a contract and would need to be emancipated to do so. But hopefully these are going to be kind of rare and few and far between.
Speaking of contracts, if a child, you know, a minor needed to go into a legal agreement, what then happens in that case as the role of a parent and as a
Sure.
child?
So if you're under 18, you can't enter into a contract without your parents' support guidance. So
Do it on
you'll
your
know,
behalf.
Yes. So if your child needs to sign an indemnity form for school, they obviously bring it home to you guys as the parents to sign on their behalf. Children can enter into contracts under the age of 18 where there's no obligations placed on them. So it's just rights, where they gain rights, not have obligations. And then, as we said earlier, in certain instances, children up to between 15 and 18 can enter into employment contracts. But that's going to be limited. A 15-year-old can't get employment working at a bar, for an example, or in a mine. But there will be certain work that a child of 15 can do.
Hopefully that's educated you. You can find them at legalese.co.za. We are obviously looking at family law and law as it pertains to being a father. I'm going to add to this, this wasn't a parenting chat, this was about the legal side of, but an opportunity to reinforce that as dads, we do have responsibilities to our families, yes, but most importantly, to our children. I love the fact that our law puts them first, and we should too.